A desire to please. He was more terrified than he should have been. Judy had asked for this after all. They had been in a secret relationship from the rest of their peers for quite a while now. Around the others, they were best buds, a classic buddy cop duo. After work, they had grown into a lot more. Their night would usually begin talking about work, the cases they were working on, and possible leads. It was almost like their foreplay, as strange as that sounded. There would always be something to signal when the other person was ready. Judy might brush his shoulder or place her hand on his thigh. He might give her a playful wink. But no matter what, they always ended up lost in each other's mouths, embracing and caressing each other's bodies, but never quite taking that last step. Until tonight, that was. Nick Wilde had been through a lot, being abandoned at a young age, fighting against discrimination due to his species, the various law-evading things he had done in the past. He didn't think anything could make him anxious at this point. Alas, there was still one thing that could, the challenge of being careful for his mate. Would his predatory nature come out when he had a prey at such a vulnerable state? Even if it didn't, would he hurt her based off their size difference alone? Thoughts like this kept Nick nervous through every second of what was supposed to be a relaxing date with his girlfriend. Judy removed her striped pink top in front of Nick, leaving her in just skimpy lingerie.
You know that old saying about black panties?
Judy asked, turning her tail towards Nick and giving him a sensuous view of her front and back.
Well, this isn't something I'd usually wear, but, you know.
Nick smiled at his lover, him at this point having completely undressed himself. He was trying his best to push his worries out of his mind, but they seemed determined to dominate it. Judy came closer to Nick, gesturing towards her back, which was very close to his snout. He gave her a puzzled look, and Judy gave him a "what am I going to do with you" smile.
Pull it off, silly,
Judy whispered. Nick's face turned crimson as he mentally scolded himself. How could he not have made that connection in his mind? Judy's moxie in letting him do something like that was definitely putting him into the mood. Obeying, Nick placed his mouth gently on her bra, and with one bite ripped the pesky thing from her body, throwing it from his mouth to the end of the bed. Pulling his mouth off of her, Judy turned around and pulled her panties off herself, giving Nick a full frontal view of her anatomy. Her petite breasts weren't something most guys would write home about, but Nick was more than happy with her frame. Now there was only the matter of his frame, of which he was hiding the lower half under a brown blanket.
Don't be shy,
Judy said, smiling at her partner as she tugged at the blanket. Nick quickly grabbed it back from her.
Oh, come on,
Judy whined, her ears drooping as she frowned.
I'm gonna have to see it at some point. And you've seen every part of me. It's only fair.
Nick was absolutely petrified by this point, but forced out his signature smile. You're lucky I like you, carrots. With a deep breath he dropped the blanket, leaving every inch of himself exposed to Judy. He watched as she sized him up and down, her expression remaining neutral as she did so. Well? Nick questioned.
Not bad,
Judy stated. Not bad?
Shh,
Judy shushed, lying down on the bed. Nick wasn't sure whether to be insulted or aroused by her teasing at this point.
I meant that as a compliment.
Are you scared? Nick asked the bunny, sliding his paws down slowly to begin to spread her soft hind legs.
I'm terrified,
Judy replied, leaning right into his ear, her tone of voice abruptly changing to a seductive whisper.
I'm terrified I'm gonna die from all this tension if you don't take me right now.
That was something Nick would never have expected to come out of Judy Hop's mouth, and he absolutely loved it. With a nod, Nick spread Judy's legs, and their bodies met. With a moan, Judy suddenly got a look of distress on her face which made Nick nervous. Am I hurting you? Nick questioned, his anxiety going crazy again and overpowering his pleasure from their touch.
No, it's great,
Judy replied, smiling at Nick.
Keep going, please.
Nick felt a huge weight lifted from his shoulders as he smiled back at his partner, letting his natural instincts take control. He had been way too worried this whole time. He held onto Judy's thigh as he began to get a sort of rhythm going, her pleasured moans keeping him feeling secure that he wasn't hurting her. His sense of smell was giving him even more pleasure. Was that blueberry-scented perfume? She knew him so well. Nick felt his body beginning to tense up, knowing his moment of euphoria was coming. "Judy, Nick began, having trouble even forming a coherent sentence due to the intense pleasure taking over his mind. "Almost there." Judy nodded at the fox, a look of bliss on her face as Nick continued to pleasure her.
"Me, too."
He felt himself release, tilting his head back and howling in pleasure, digging his claws into the bedsheets.
"Oh God, Nick, I love you,"
Judy moaned, letting out a scream of pleasure as she finished. The two sat in silence for a few seconds after, breathing in and out to let their bodies recover. Judy grabbed a hold of her partner, kissing him passionately as his hand caressed her thigh.
"I didn't hurt you, did I?"
Nick asked. Judy's expression was somewhere between a smile and a grimace as she shook her head at him.
"I would have told you if you were hurting me, Nick. You did much better than okay."
Nick grinned at the bunny as she curled around him, arm on his stomach. At a moment like this, he wanted to say something to make sure Judy knew how much he cared for her.
"I love you, more than ice cream carrots,"
Nick stated, immediately regretting it.
"Oh God, Nick, you're such a poet,"
Judy teased, giving him a playful kiss, then stretching herself off the bed.
"I think I'm gonna hit the shower. Care to join me?"